There's a moment in every person's life when they look around and realize they've been running, not toward their purpose, but toward people who were never running toward them. I once heard a story about a man who spent years trying to sit at a table where no one saved him a seat. He gave his time, his loyalty, his heart, yet every time he reached out, he felt a little smaller. One day, exhausted, he stopped, and he discovered something shocking. The moment he stopped chasing people, he started noticing the people who had been waiting to walk beside him the whole time. Sometimes life isn't asking you to try harder. Sometimes it's asking you to let go of those who slow you down, so you can finally see who lifts you up. And today, I want to tell you 7 powerful truths that show you exactly how your life transforms when you stop running after people who were never meant to stay. The first key point is about reclaiming your power the moment you stop chasing people. And this shift is far deeper than most people realize. When you chase someone, whether it's a friend, a partner, or anyone whose attention you're trying to keep, you unknowingly hand them the steering wheel of your emotional life. You let their reactions decide your mood, their presence determine your confidence, and their behavior shape your self-worth. It's like shrinking yourself to fit into a smaller version of who you truly are. But the moment you stop chasing, something inside you rises. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's calm, firm, and powerful. It's the moment you say, "My value doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves." That decision alone begins your transformation. When you reclaim your power, you begin to understand how much emotional energy you were giving away without even noticing. You start to see that your mind was trained to operate from fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough. These fears keep you running after people who barely walk toward you. But when you step back, you start reprogramming your inner world. You begin to act from confidence instead of insecurity, strength instead of desperation, clarity instead of confusion. You stop asking, "How do I keep them?" and start asking, "Do they even deserve access to me?" That single question alone raises your standards to a level many people around you are not prepared for. As you reclaim your power, you also reclaim your identity. You realize how much of your personality you had diluted just to fit into spaces that didn't value the full version of you. Maybe you softened your voice, downplayed your dreams, hid your uniqueness, or tolerated behaviors that made your spirit tired. But when you stop chasing, you no longer negotiate your identity for temporary acceptance. You start showing up as yourself, fully, unapologetically, boldly. And something amazing happens. You begin to feel whole again. You reconnect with parts of you that were buried under trying too hard for too long. Reclaiming your power also means you stop carrying the weight of proving your worth. Because chasing people is often rooted in the belief that you must earn love, earn respect, earn attention. But when you step away, you begin to understand that real connections don't need convincing. They don't require you to stretch yourself thin. They don't drain your energy. They flow naturally and they feel light. As this truth sinks deeper, you stop putting effort into places where there is no equal effort in return. You stop pouring into cups that never overflow back into yours. You stop investing in relationships that don't invest in you. Another powerful shift happens inside you. Your independence grows. You become emotionally self-sufficient. You stop relying on someone else's validation to feel valuable. You stop waiting for replies to feel important. You stop needing someone's attention to feel seen. Instead, you build yourself from the inside out. You create a life, a mindset, and a purpose that does not collapse when someone leaves. And as your inner world strengthens, you start attracting people who match that strength. People who respect you, appreciate you, and walk beside you without needing to be chased. And finally, reclaiming your power shifts the entire energy of your presence. People begin to sense your confidence. They notice your boundaries. They recognize your self-respect. When you were chasing, you were operating from lack. But when you stop, you operate from abundance. You no longer ask, "Please choose me." Instead, your entire energy says, "I choose myself first." And ironically, it is this self-chosen power that makes you more respected, more valued, and more magnetic than chasing ever could. The second key point is about shifting from begging for space in someone's life to confidently choosing who deserves space in yours. And this shift changes everything about how you view relationships. When you are in the mode of chasing, you live in constant hope. Hoping they text back, hoping they include you, hoping they care. You shape your behavior around their reactions instead of your own needs. But the moment you stop chasing, you step into a new role. You stop acting like a guest in your own life and start acting like the host. You begin to understand that not everyone deserves front row access to your time, your emotions, or your energy. And suddenly, you're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're deciding for yourself. When you stop begging for connection, your eyes open to a powerful truth. The people who truly value you will never require you to fight for basic respect. You start to notice how certain individuals only appreciate you when you're convenient for them. You see how some people enjoy the attention you give them, but never give anything back. You see how you kept offering kindness, loyalty, and effort to people who treated it like something cheap. But once you stop chasing, you no longer allow this imbalance. You start demanding reciprocity, not through words, but through the standards you live by. That quiet shift in your expectations speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. Choosing, not begging, also changes the quality of your relationships. Instead of clinging to whoever gives you crumbs of attention, you start filtering. You evaluate people based on effort, consistency, and intention, not charm, excuses, or temporary emotions. You stop holding on to relationships out of fear of losing them. You start letting people go if they don't match the level of respect you offer. This doesn't make you cold or selfish. It makes you wise. It protects your heart from people who only show up when they need something. It protects your mind from emotional roller coasters. And most importantly, it protects your spirit from people who drain more than they give. As you move into the mindset of choosing, you become more aware of your own value. You realize that you bring something meaningful to every connection: your empathy, your loyalty, your honesty, your presence. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must earn a place in someone's life. Instead, you recognize that being in your life is a privilege. Not everyone deserves it. Not everyone is ready for it. Not everyone can handle the depth of what you give. And that realization becomes a filter that naturally removes people who cannot meet you with sincerity or respect. This shift also teaches you to trust your instincts in a way you never did before. When you were chasing, you ignored red flags. You overlooked half-hearted effort. You justified inconsistent behavior. You convinced yourself that they just needed more time, more patience, more understanding. But once you step back, you stop explaining away people's treatment. You learn to take behavior at face value. You believe actions over words. You stop arguing with the truth your intuition has been whispering all along. This clarity gives you the strength to walk away earlier faster, and without guilt. And eventually, choosing instead of begging becomes your natural state. You no longer fight to be seen. You no longer chase people who treat you like an option. You no longer compromise your peace just to keep someone close. You simply look at how a person shows up, and you either invite them deeper into your life, or you quietly step away. That quiet, confident decision making becomes one of the most powerful forms of self-respect you'll ever develop. It turns your life from a place of emotional scarcity into a place of emotional abundance, where you no longer search for love, you allow it. The third key point is about how you attract people who genuinely value your presence the moment you stop offering yourself at a discount, and this is one of the most surprising transformations you'll ever experience. When you're chasing, you try to prove your worth through effort, overthinking your messages, overgiving, over-explaining, overstaying. You believe that if you do just a little more, people will finally see your value. But when you step back, something powerful happens. Your absence reveals what your presence was worth. The people who truly care lean in. The ones who only enjoyed your effort fade out. And you finally start drawing in people who appreciate you not because you chase, but because you carry value in who you are. When you stop discounting yourself, you begin to show the world your true price. You stop offering endless patience to people who don't respect your time. You stop offering emotional support to people who show up only when they need something. You stop giving your loyalty to people who are loyal only to their own convenience. And when those discounts disappear, the people who were only there for the sale vanish too. But don't be fooled, this is not a loss, this is a cleansing. It clears the path for people who see your worth at full value from the start, without negotiation, without hesitation. As this shift happens, your energy changes. You stop carrying the weight of desperation and you start carrying the weight of self-respect. People can feel this before you even speak. Your body language changes, your tone changes, your boundaries become clearer. You walk differently, you speak differently, and you show up differently. And these subtle shifts create a new kind of magnetism. Not the magnetism of trying too hard, but the magnetism of someone who knows who they are and what they deserve. Confidence, quiet, confidence, has a gravity that pulls the right people toward you without you needing to chase anyone. When you stop chasing, you also create space for genuine connections to form. Many people think they want real relationships, but they're too busy forcing the wrong ones to notice the right ones waiting nearby. When you release the people who don't reciprocate, you open the door for those who actually align with your values. People who show up consistently. People who communicate clearly. People who respect boundaries instead of testing them. People who contribute instead of draining. These are the individuals who gravitate toward you naturally once the noise of unhealthy attachments is gone. Another powerful effect is that you start seeing the difference between attention and appreciation. Chasing people makes you hungry for any form of attention, even if it's inconsistent or shallow. But when you step back, you learn to recognize who really values you, not through words, not through promises, but through effort and behavior. True appreciation shows up in how people prioritize you, how they make time for you, how they respect your needs, and how they show up when it matters. You begin to realize that appreciation is not loud, it's steady. It's not dramatic, it's reliable. And once you feel that kind of presence, you will never again settle for anything less. And the final shift is this: when you no longer chase people, You start attracting relationships built on equality, not imbalance. You stop entering situations where you're the giver and they're the taker. You stop falling into dynamics where you're the one trying and they're the one deciding. Instead, you attract people who meet you halfway, people who choose you, show up for you, and value you without needing to be convinced. This is the kind of connection that grows, strengthens, and lasts. The moment you stop chasing is the moment your presence begins to attract exactly what your spirit has been searching for all along. The fourth key point is about learning to separate attention from real affection, because once you stop chasing people, you begin to see clearly how often you accepted the bare minimum and called it love. When you're in chase mode, even the smallest gesture can feel meaningful. A quick reply, a random compliment, a short call. These tiny drops of attention feel like affection because you're thirsty for connection. But this thirst makes you blind. You overlook inconsistency, mixed signals, and shallow effort. You convince yourself that these brief moments mean something deeper. But the moment you stop chasing, you suddenly recognize how little you are actually receiving. You begin to understand that attention is easy, it is impulsive, and it requires nothing. Affection, on the other hand, is intentional. It requires effort, care, and consistency. When you step back and stop running after people, you start to see how attention can be a trap. Some people give just enough to keep you hopeful, but never enough to build anything real. They offer temporary connection so you don't walk away, but they never offer commitment. They like the feeling of being wanted, not the responsibility of actually wanting you back. And as long as you're chasing, they don't have to give more. But once you stop, the truth reveals itself. If all they ever gave was attention, they disappear. If they cared, they stay. This clarity is painful at first, but it's also liberating, because it protects you from wasting years on people who only show up when it's convenient for them. As your perspective shifts, you become more aware of the difference between someone who acknowledges you and someone who values you. Attention can come from anyone. You can get it from strangers, acquaintances, or people who don't plan to stay in your life. But value comes from those who see your worth and treat you with consistency. When someone values you, they don't leave you confused. They don't keep you guessing. They don't appear and disappear based on their schedule or moods. They make space for you. They communicate clearly. They show up. They don't treat you like an option. And they don't wait for you to chase them to feel important. Letting go of the chase also reveals your own patterns, how you might have mistaken emotional highs for emotional depth. Attention gives you highs. It gives you adrenaline, excitement, and temporary validation. But highs fade quickly. Affection, on the other hand, gives you stability. It gives you peace instead of anxiety. It gives you clarity instead of confusion. It gives you comfort instead of chaos. Once you start valuing peace over emotional drama, you stop being impressed by sporadic attention. You start looking for the quiet reliability of someone whose actions match their words. You also begin to understand how attention-starved you were. Maybe you stayed in connections where you were always the one initiating. Maybe you held on to someone who only contacted you when they were bored or lonely. Maybe you accepted crumbs because you were afraid of being alone. But when you stop chasing, you realize that being alone is far healthier than being half-loved. You see that your loneliness wasn't because you lacked people. It was because you were surrounded by people who only fed you attention, not affection. And once this truth sinks in, you can never go back to accepting less than what you deserve. And eventually, this shift strengthens your boundaries in a way nothing else can. You stop falling for charm. You stop believing sweet words. You stop getting attached to inconsistent behavior. You judge people not by how much they excite you, but by how much they respect you. You stop being flattered by attention, and you start being moved by commitment, kindness, and presence. You learn to choose people who offer affection, not just attention. People who see you, value you, and show you through consistent action that you matter. This is when your relationships transform from draining to fulfilling, from unstable to secure, and from temporary to meaningful. The fifth key point is about how you regain your time, energy, and mental peace the moment you stop chasing people, because chasing consumes far more of your life than you realize. When you're in that cycle, your mind is constantly occupied, wondering why they haven't replied, replaying conversations, trying to interpret mixed signals, and adjusting your behavior to hold on to someone who isn't trying to hold on to you. This mental exhaustion chips away at your focus, your creativity, your motivation, and even your joy. But when you stop chasing, it's like someone finally turns off the noise inside your head. You rediscover a quietness you forgot existed, a stillness that makes you feel human again. You realize how much inner chaos was created by trying to keep people close who were never committed to staying. Once you step out of that exhausting chase, your time becomes yours again. You no longer rearrange your schedule for someone who never makes room for you. You no longer pause your life waiting for their responses or their decisions. You no longer delay your plans hoping they'll finally show interest. Instead, you start giving your time to things that grow you, your goals, your health, your passions, your purpose. You fill your days with what nourishes your future, not what drains your present. And as you reclaim your time, you feel your sense of direction return, like rebuilding a muscle that had been unused for far too long. With time comes the return of energy, emotional, mental, spiritual. Chasing people creates a constant emotional drain because you're always trying to predict, please, or prove. You invest more than you should, give more than you receive, and hope more than reality supports. This imbalance weakens you slowly, like a battery losing charge without being recharged. But when you stop chasing, your emotional energy stops leaking. You begin to feel strength you haven't felt in months or even years. Your emotions become balanced instead of unpredictable. Your heart feels lighter. Your mind becomes clearer. The exhaustion you once accepted as normal fades away, revealing just how much of your strength was being spent on the wrong people. As your energy returns, your mental peace follows. The constant overthinking fades because there's no longer anything to obsess over. You stop analyzing every detail. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios. You stop hoping for closure from people who don't value clarity. Instead, your mind rests, it breathes, it finds stability. You become calmer, more grounded, more centered. And with that calmness, you start making better decisions. Decisions that serve your growth instead of your fears. You realize peace was always available to you. It was just hidden under the noise of chasing. Another powerful change is that you become more present in your own life. When you stop chasing, you stop abandoning yourself. You stop ignoring your own needs, neglecting your own emotions, and overlooking your own well-being. You rediscover simple joys, conversations, nature, your hobbies, your passions, moments with people who genuinely care. You feel yourself living instead of waiting. And this presence reconnects you with your goals and dreams, many of which were put on hold while you tried to keep someone else from slipping away. Eventually, regaining your peace transforms your entire lifestyle. You become more intentional with what you allow into your life. You choose people who add calmness, not chaos. You choose conversations that uplift you, not drain you. You choose environments that support your growth, not sabotage it. You choose habits that restore your energy, not deplete it. And as you protect your peace, you realize it's not just a feeling, it's a boundary, it's a commitment to yourself. It's a promise that you will no longer trade your mental well-being for temporary attention or one-sided connections. This is how regaining your time, energy, and peace becomes one of the greatest gifts of letting go. The sixth key point is about rising above emotional dependence and learning to stand strong on your own, because chasing people often comes from a deep place of needing someone else to regulate your emotions. When you're emotionally dependent, your mood rises and falls based on how someone treats you. A reply can make your day, and silence can destroy it. Their approval feels like oxygen, and their distance feels like suffocation. But the moment you stop chasing, you begin to detach your emotional stability from someone else's behavior. You stop letting their inconsistency shake you. You stop letting their choices dictate your worth. You begin to build an emotional foundation that rests inside you, not outside you. And that's when real strength starts to grow. As you move away from emotional dependence, you begin to see how much you are shrinking yourself to keep the connection alive. You tolerated things that hurt you, accepted things you didn't deserve, and held on to hope even when reality gave you every reason to let go. You told yourself that losing them would break you, so you stayed even when staying broke you slowly. But once you step out of the chase, you realize that the version of you who believed you couldn't survive without them was actually the version of you who hadn't met your true strength yet. Letting go doesn't weaken you, it reveals the strength you always had but never used. When you stop relying on someone else to make you feel important, your self-worth becomes solid again. You begin to validate yourself instead of searching for validation in someone else's reactions. You stop asking, "Why didn't they choose me?" and start asking, "Why did I choose them over myself?" This shift is powerful because it transforms your self-image. You no longer define yourself through someone else's attention or affection. You start defining yourself through your values, your growth, your resilience, and your vision for your life. You realize you are not someone who needs to be completed. You are someone who can be complemented, but you are already whole. As emotional dependence fades, your decision making becomes clearer. You stop making choices from fear of loneliness, fear of losing someone, fear of starting over. Instead, you start making choices from clarity and self-respect. You begin to walk away faster from people who play with your emotions. You stop getting trapped in cycles of false promises and temporary affection. You start trusting your intuition more because you're no longer drowning in emotional noise. And with that clarity, you begin building relationships based on equality and mutual respect, not survival and insecurity. Another beautiful shift that happens is you gain emotional independence, not in a cold, detached way, but in a healthy, secure way. You learn how to comfort yourself, calm yourself, motivate yourself, and support yourself. You discover that you can be your own safe space. Your happiness stops depending on whether someone stays or leaves. Your peace stops depending on how someone behaves. You realize that your emotional life is your responsibility, not theirs, and that realization gives you a kind of inner freedom you've never felt before. Eventually, Rising above emotional dependence changes your entire emotional landscape. You stop fearing endings because you trust your ability to begin again. You stop clinging to people because you know your worth doesn't decrease when someone walks away. You stop searching for someone to save you because you understand now that you were never broken. You were just giving too much of your heart to people who never knew how to hold it. And once you reclaim your emotional independence, you become someone who loves fully, but never at the cost of your own well-being. You become someone who can share your heart without losing yourself in the process. The seventh key point is about how your entire life begins to shift upward the moment you stop chasing the wrong people and start aligning yourself with your true purpose. Because chasing doesn't just drain your relationships, it slows down your destiny. When you stop running after people who don't value you, you suddenly free up emotional and mental space that was meant for your growth. You begin to think differently, move differently, and dream differently. Your mind stops looping around rejection or confusion, and it starts focusing on what actually matters: your potential, your future, and the person you are becoming. This shift is powerful because it marks the moment when you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You stop allowing people to distract you from the path you were meant to walk. As this transformation begins, you start seeing how chasing people had blurred your vision. When your attention was tied up in trying to keep someone close, you couldn't see the doors opening around you. You ignored opportunities. You delayed decisions. You abandoned dreams just to maintain a connection that was never meant to shape your life. But once you let go, clarity arrives like fresh air. You start noticing the things you once overlooked. New skills you want to learn, new goals you want to pursue, new areas of life that excite you. It's like waking up after a long sleep and realizing how much of your power you had placed in the hands of people who didn't deserve it. With this clarity, your sense of direction becomes stronger. You stop asking, "What do they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I want for myself?" You stop molding yourself to fit into someone else's world and start building your own. You begin setting goals that come from your heart, not your fears. You get more organized, more disciplined, more focused. You develop habits that align with your dreams instead of your insecurities. You stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing the life you actually want. This shift turns you from a follower of people into a leader of your own destiny. Once you step onto your real path, your confidence grows naturally. Not because someone praises you, but because you can finally feel your life moving forward. You start accomplishing things you once doubted you could do. You see progress that makes you proud. You develop inner stability that feels grounded and unshakable. And the best part, you begin to trust yourself, your decisions, your intuition, your strength. You realize you are not defined by who left you or who didn't choose you. You are defined by how you rise, how you grow, and how you keep moving. This self-trust becomes a quiet force that pushes you toward the person you're meant to become. As your purpose becomes clearer, the quality of the people you attract changes drastically. You no longer pull in those who come for attention, convenience, or ego. You attract people who respect your direction, encourage your growth, and walk beside you instead of pulling you backward. These are people who want to build with you, not drain you. People who understand your vision, not belittle it. People who appreciate your standards, not test them. It's not magic, it's alignment. Once you know where you're going, the right people recognize it and step into your life naturally. Eventually, aligning with your purpose brings you a sense of fulfillment that chasing people could never give. You feel lighter, stronger, more grounded. You wake up with intention instead of anxiety. You build a life that reflects your values instead of your fears. And you finally understand why some people had to leave. They were blocking the path you were destined to walk. When you stop chasing people, you start chasing growth, clarity, purpose, and peace. And that choice changes everything about the life you create from that moment forward. Every strong woman you admire didn't rise by accident. She rose because she made small choices every single day. Choices to stay disciplined, to stay focused, to stay committed to her growth, even when no one was watching. These habits aren't loud or dramatic, they're quiet, steady, and deeply intentional. And over time they stack up, building a foundation so solid that life's storms can shake her, but never break her. If you carry even one of these habits into tomorrow, you'll feel a shift. Carry 2, and you'll notice your confidence grow. Carry all 10, and you won't just become stronger, you'll become unstoppable. Because strength isn't something you wait for, it's something you build, choice by choice, moment by moment, day by day. So as you move forward, remember this: the world doesn't need perfection from you, it needs your persistence. It needs your courage. It needs your willingness to show up, even in your smallest moments, with intention and heart. The habits you practice today become the woman you rise into tomorrow. And that woman, she is powerful, she is steady, she is rising.